Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our 9th International Women's Day breakfast and our first virtual one. On behalf of the Cambridge chapter of the Canadian Federation of University Women, in partnership with the City of Cambridge Celebration of Women, I would like to thank you for joining us by Zoom to honor the accomplishments of women. My name is Cheryl MacInnes, and I'm the president of the CFUW Cambridge Club. I'm pleased to be your MC today on International Women's Day. This is an annual global celebration of the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. The day also makes a call to action for accelerating women's equality. This year's theme is Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. This theme celebrates the tremendous efforts of women and girls around the world in shaping a more equal future and recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. Women stand at the front lines of the COVID-19 crisis as healthcare workers, caregivers, innovators, community supporters, and as some of the most exemplary and effective national leaders in combating the pandemic. The Canadian Federation of University Women is a national, nonpartisan, nonprofit, self-funded organization with over 6,000 members across Canada. CFUW was founded over 100 years ago to support women to gain admittance to Canadian universities. We believe in the power of women working together to improve the status of women, equality, and human rights. With over 100 clubs in every province, close to $1 million annually to women pursue post-secondary studies. Funding for education for women is a key to gender equality, economic prosperity, better health, and much more. CFUW is part of an international organization that advocates for women and girls and holds special status with the United Nations. Dr. Marie Curie spoke at a CFUW lecture in Niagara Falls in 1921 about her discovery of the radioactive element radium. She had overcome barriers to achieve a university education, a career, and 2 Nobel Prizes, while also fulfilling her role as a wife and mother. She reminded her audience to be less curious about people and more curious about ideas, a reminder of the importance of scholarship and achieving one's own potential. I would like to now introduce Donna Reid. Councillor Reid is a retired teacher from the Waterloo Region District School Board who sought election and council to serve her community. She is committed to lifelong learning and volunteers with many community groups, including the planning committee for this event. Councillor Reid will bring greetings from the City of Cambridge and share with us some thoughts about the Cambridge celebration of women.
Thank you, Cheryl. So I'm very pleased to be here to introduce this virtual celebration of International Women's Day 2021. You know, the Celebration of Women is a program of the City of Cambridge that was founded by me several years ago to celebrate women on 3 historic days. They are this day, International Women's Day, Charter Day in April, when women were finally included in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and lastly, Persons Day, when 5 brave women made possible for all women be named persons and allow them to enter into the Canadian Senate. I work with my executive assistant, Karen Pepper, our community outreach coordinator, and community groups who apply. We've been very happy to work with the Canadian Federation of University Women for the last number of years to introduce celebration breakfast on this historic day. One of the themes this year is to choose to challenge. It pushes us all, men, women, and children, to challenge biases, racism, bullying, and inequities that don't allow each person to grow and become all that they're capable of being. It's easy to turn your head when someone is threatening another, but we mustn't. It's easy to look past policies and rules that allow poverty, homelessness, and opioid addictions to flourish. But we mustn't. It is easy to go along, to get along. In fact, we are often rewarded for this kind of behavior, but we must resist this temptation. Today, I'm asking you to take action when you see inequities, to harassment and bullying. Today is your day to take action. Today is your day. We can work together and build a society where all people are valued. And on this historic day, let us show women that we care. Let us celebrate our successes and applaud our determination to build a better world. Let us all show that we are up to the challenge. We will choose the challenge today, tomorrow, and every day of our lives. I know we can do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid, for your very inspirational words. That's a lot for us to think about. Our speakers today are women that are leaders in our community and need very little introduction. Sue Sturdy, Pam Wolf, and Jayne Herring will share their personal journeys relating to the International Women's Day theme, Choose to Challenge, and tell us how they inspire others to follow. Sue Sturdy?
Hi, I'm sorry, it's taking me a little bit. I am not a digital native, and I know that I'm learning more. And I know that when we talk about choose to challenge, one of the things are that right now, none of us are choosing this, but by George, we are living up to the challenge. We're doing things like Zoom, just like right now, learning when to mute and unmute. We're doing things like, ordering groceries online, which thanks to a good friend of mine the other day, helped me do that because I hadn't done that before, curbside delivery. This is a time that is very challenging for everybody. And I think we are all living up to it by wearing masks, doing what we need to do. But when I go back and look at the challenges that I had, I am married to a great guy, Bob Parks, and we had 3 sons. And I thought, I wanted to make sure that those 3 sons knew a little bit about textiles. And so I remember thinking, I'm going to take a knitting machine into the schools. And so my kids all went to Tate Street School. And lucky for me, they were very kind in letting me come in and ask them to do something. So I would ask the kids to make a magical dinosaur land, draw a picture, and then I would bring the knitting machine in, help them, get them to actually take and use it and be able to make something that they drew. So what I've got is some pictures for you of some of the things that were done with the kids when I was at Tate Street School. And the first is a magical dinosaur land. And they all drew something that they thought, what would be in a magical dinosaur land? And of course, in there were things like, there were 3 girls sitting in the corner, there were magical worms. There were so many things that the kids were able to sort of do something with. It was a challenge to them. We went from there, from the dinosaur, into the Millennium Project in 2020. And I asked kids what they thought Cambridge would look like in the year 2025. And you can see on this that they thought there'll be a hockey night in Cambridge. There'll be hover hockey. Those blue chairs were chairs that would hover around where hockey would be played. And just down in the left-hand corner, there was a tree, and the tree was supposed to be, they said money will grow on trees by that time. We then went to, I thought, a friend of mine said, I want my car pimped. I want something done with it. So Jean Skillman brought her smart car over, and we did a project where we wanted to decorate it in somehow. From there, I ended up with a great relationship with the Cambridge Center for the Arts. And when I was there, I remember there being a talk about the Make Art Happen, the Region of Waterloo grants. And there they had a grant that was $200,000. And from there, I was able to decide, I remember asking, Kitchener and Waterloo get a lot of this money. Why doesn't Cambridge? And they said, well, nobody applies. I thought, well, I'm going to apply. And so therefore I decided I am doing something called Knit Cambridge. And we had a great project, but the challenges were I had to go to places and do fall protection training and know how to use different types of forklifts and that. We also had the challenge of asking people to give us things. And so what I did is I asked for donations from people like Jean Anderson donated, Teresa. It was so lovely when things came from all around the world. And the challenge too was to get people to learn to do things. And Stuart Summerhays was one of the greatest people that ended up learning to knit so that he could have something on the bridge. We were always trying to challenge people, and we had a great time doing that. We ended up too then taking the knitting machine into Preston Public School so that I could see if kids could do it. They would choose and do 20 rows, and what we finished with in the end was 30 yards of fabric that then went onto the bridge, and here's what they made. This came onto the Cambridge Bridge, and that was all the students from Preston Public School. It was a real challenge. From there, I had to find somebody to help us put it on the bridge. And Al Falsetto and his guys were some of the greatest people. You know, they didn't know what they were doing. It was a challenge to them. We used something like 15,000 zip ties on the bridge to get all of that on there. But people then came and they sent us things. So someone sent us hats. They sent us pieces of crochet knitting so that we could put anything on the bridge we wanted. People even ended up sending things, and we made sure kids could go through and see, oh, the cars that they had. People even sent us beautiful pieces of farrow that were gorgeous, and we had those on the bridge. There was one woman that called me up, and her sister was intellectually challenged, and she would knit and tear out and knit and tear out. And finally she said, I'll knit for this project and I won't tear out. She sent us all of these squares. It was like giving her life to us, and we made sure that they went into one long piece that then got put in the bridge, and I was just taking her over to that spot at that time to see it. You can see here, this was an overall look at the bridge. And again, it was the challenge of, could we really do something like this? And everybody rose to the challenge by sending us things and having a great time. I think everyone was amazed at how much we could all do together. People would take pictures from all different kinds of angles, and you would be able to see what was going on. And the biggest thing I didn't think about was the art that was made from this bridge. There's a photographer that was standing there, and he was calling his friend because he was part of a group that had challenges all across the country where they would have a challenge each month. And this month was color and pattern. And he was calling his friend to say, I've hit the jackpot. I've got exactly what I want. We had stunning images from everywhere. This was one of a gentleman that did it, and it was just so nice to see all the art that was made from this project. Again, every one of those pieces was a challenge to people and for us to put it together. We even had people come out of the woodwork to help us put this, take it down, because all the pieces had to be cleaned and we had to repurpose them. So some of these people, I know a lot of them, but there were some in there that turned up out of the blue to help us out because it was a challenge and it was nice for people to do it. After we had all the knit, we then had to clean it. So this came back from a great place. It was City that cleaned it for us, and we were able to take and repurpose all those peoples. There were so many people that helped. And some of the pieces that got left over went to a Mad Hatter tea party that we had because we wanted people to come and enjoy themselves. And Danny Ingerville built that for us, and then we covered it with some of the knit that was left over. In 2012, Brampton came to me and they asked me to do a project with them, and it was called Colorful Roots, and they wanted all of their community to be involved in it. So at one point, Brampton used to have the largest indoor flower growing, and we decided to make a garden from that. So if you look at these pieces, there are all kinds of small pieces. There are receiving blankets. I said, make me anything that will fit into a garden and we will put it together. It was amazing the things that came into us. Anything and everything was used. We even had a lawnmower that was covered by someone. And again, all of these pieces were special to people that they wanted something, and many hands made light work where a lot of people came along and helped us put things together so that we would be able to have something like this. It was a challenge in many ways to make it look good. And there were pieces that were left from the bridge on that. I then went in 2014 to something called the Big Weave, and Dave Olson helped us make a loom on the back of a flatbed, 20 feet long by 8 feet wide. We asked people to donate us sheets and shirts and anything. And these other two people with me, Gina LaRusso and Audrey McCurdy, are one of the ones that helped us put this together. And it was just a great project to remind people about the history that we have of textiles. Here's Pam sitting on this beautiful piece of textile we had. We then went to things that, like, in the next year, at the end of the year, they asked me to do something for Phil Klein. And I was thinking, what do I make this time? Here's your hat. What's your hurry? Again, pieces that people gave us, pieces that we had left over from the bridge. We just had a great time in asking people to help us out. And every time we asked, people would come up to the challenge. The biggest one was in 2017, our 150th anniversary of Canada. And I asked people to do something called the Grand Woolly River Ride. And at one point, Coeur d'Ivoire opened up the rivers by taking things down. So I was trying to marry the two of them together in reminding people that we were the textile community and that we had textiles, and that's how it was opened up by canoe. So people were so kind and giving us things again. And on top of that, I had pieces left over from the bridge that we could use in this. It was just a great project that we had going on. We then took all the pieces. These are pieces left over from one of the pieces left over from the bridge. And then we took all the pieces and went to Dixon Park, put them on landscaping carpet. Those were all the pieces that people sent us from all around to be able to do it, to make a Canadian flag. The project was up for 21 days. And in the end, we were able to take and repurpose all those pieces too. Last but not least, we now have the Cambridge Poppy Project. And I'm so happy to be part of this now. It is a great project where we're asking people to knit, crochet, or sew some poppies. We are going to have this into a display in Remembrance Day. And I know that Jayne is going to talk about it later on. But I have to tell you, thank you very much. I'm so happy for this opportunity to talk about some of the things in this community. And I have to tell you, we have one of the best communities here that when you ask them to help out or you ask them to do something, they come, they meet the challenge, and it's really lovely. I am so fortunate to have been here in this community and still am here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue, for your very inspirational presentation. And I know I knit a big bright orange scarf, and I went with my daughter and down to that bridge just to find that piece of knitting that I contributed and took a picture. So I think that you inspire us, and yes, I'm knitting. And thank you so much. Pam Wolf will now share her story with us.
Hello, everyone. When Kathleen Schrum from CFUW asked me to do this speech, I was reluctant. Unfortunately for me, that did not faze her one little bit. And here I am. It was the theme of this International Women's Day celebration, Choose to Challenge, that finally convinced me. I realized, looking back at my life, my greatest accomplishments involved overcoming challenges and going beyond my comfort zone. I have also worked to challenge a world which is not gender equal throughout my career. One of my very first actions came as a teenager when I stood up to an employer who paid male students more than female students for the same work. I spoke up for the girls and threatened that we would all quit if we were not paid the boys' wage. I actually won that fight, and it pains me that we are still fighting for equal pay for equal work 50 years later. I never dreamed I would end up in politics when I began my teaching career. However, I have always been a feminist. I wrote my fourth-year history thesis on Canada and the women's movement. My first principal and I disagreed on most things. I rode a motorcycle, which impressed my grade 5 students, but not him. He believed in fear and corporal punishment, and I loved those children. He had been on the interview team when I was hired by the board, and he had asked me two odd questions. One, would my husband be upset if I was late coming home to cook him supper? And when I laughed, he asked if I believed in women's lib. Well, of course I did. But that was not the answer the principals of the day wanted to hear. During my first inspection by the superintendent, I was told that the principals did not want to hire me because they thought I would not behave. He said he overruled them because he knew I would be a good little girl. I had blood running down my cheek as I bit my tongue. I loved teaching and my students, but I transferred from that school as soon as I could. In those days, there was only a handful of women principals. To help women progress in my profession, I became involved in my union. I started as a rep for my school, then joined our Status of Women Committee. I was later elected as the equity rep on our local EPFO executive, and then became the Status of Women chair. In these roles, I had the privilege of attending equity conferences and running workshops on violence against women. It was there I learned about the link between inequity and violence. Several studies have shown that when women have power, they are less likely to be a victim. Today, during COVID, we see the results of women being isolated in their homes and their source of income being lost. Our rates of domestic violence have increased significantly, and we need to support our women's crisis centers now more than ever. The challenge that led me to politics came with Mike Harris Sr. As Premier of Ontario, he had cut $2 billion out of the education budget and cut welfare payments by more than 20%. My teachers' union released me to work on our Cambridge NDP candidates campaign to defeat him. I accepted this challenge and became the election day organizer. I spent 3 exciting weeks working with Dr. Gibson's campaign team. I learned so much in that short time. My hardest lesson was that you could have the best candidate, win the debates, knock on every door, and still lose the election. I cried that night as the Conservatives received another majority and our candidate lost. I could not understand how people who knew what this would mean to education and to vulnerable people could still vote for Harris. I have the same lack of understanding watching people in the US support Donald Trump. After the election, Dr. Gibson moved to BC and I went back to my classroom. This was the year 2000, and as chair of the Status of Women Committee, I helped organize women to march on Parliament Hill in Ottawa. We demanded an end to poverty and sexist violence. During this time, our local NDP riding association asked me to run for them in the federal election. My first reaction was, who, me? No way. Surely there were more intelligent, skilled, experienced, better known candidates than me to run. So I went to Ottawa for the Canadian Women's March, and then in the fall, I flew to New York City for the World March of Women. We presented our petition with over 10 million signatures to the United Nations. This experience changed my life. I saw women from all over the world coming together to demand change and rights for all women. Some of these women had risked their lives to be there. I realized that I had hesitated to accept the nomination to be a federal candidate because I feared embarrassment and lacked confidence. When I returned to Cambridge, I put my name forward to run. I had told so many women and my own students how important it was for us as women to take our place at the table and assert our rights. It was time for me to practice what I preached. This was not easy. My family did not want me to run. I guess they feared I would win and run off to Ottawa. It was my women friends, my book club, my fellow teachers, Donna Reid, who stepped up to help me in my first campaign. I lost that election, but it was an amazing experience. Knocking on doors, meeting strangers, being interviewed on TV and radio, doing debates and speeches were all things out of my comfort zone. But with each one, I grew. I learned to know and love my community. I discovered that most doors you knocked on, people are friendly and polite, even if they don't plan to vote for you. I realized that a TV crew will film you for 30 minutes and show 30 seconds of that tape. Do not worry about things you do not control. I next ran in the provincial election, and then finally in 2006, ran in and won the municipal election. This time my family and husband were in full support, and my 25-year-old son even ran for school board. We handed out pamphlets together. My husband put up all my signs. I became Ward 5 councillor for the city of Cambridge. I was the only new councillor elected, and again, I was out of my comfort zone. Balancing teaching, family, and council duties was difficult. I retired from teaching full-time to concentrate on serving my community. I am now serving my 4th term with the support of friends and family. I love the work I do on the city's 10 committees and boards on which I sit. Working with like-minded people for a common goal is very satisfying. Council can be contentious, but it too is rewarding. The Hamilton Family Theatre, the old post office idea exchange, and the pedestrian bridge were all controversial bills, but worth the fight. Our next project is the new recreation complex, an idea exchange in Southeast Galt. I have learned that all public buildings are a lightning rod for critics, but if we do not continue to build, our city will stagnate. Another accomplishment of which I'm most proud was leading the city to become a living wage employer. Cambridge became the first municipality in Ontario to pay all its employees at least a living wage. That wage is now $16.35 an hour. We know that poverty affects women disproportionately. Raising minimum wage is the fastest and most effective way of helping women living in poverty. During COVID, it became very apparent that we are paying many essential workers, like PSWs, far too little. It is also essential that everyone who's sick can stay home and not have to make a choice between going to work ill or putting food on the table. Regional Council, with our support, is petitioning the provincial government to pass paid sick day legislation. Affordable housing is another issue that greatly affects women. I sit on the board of Housing Cambridge and chair the Affordable Housing Committee for Cambridge with a mandate to advocate for more affordable housing in our community. Our seniors, students, single parents, and new immigrants are just some of the people who need and live in affordable housing. In my leadership journey, I have learned to weigh the loud voices on social media against the needs of my community. As leaders, we do not only represent the majority opinion, but also the vulnerable and the rights of the minority. This is why establishing a consumption and treatment site in Cambridge is next on my agenda. In 2020, 98 people died of drug overdoses in Waterloo region. We need to choose to challenge our attitude toward addiction. But today, on a lighter issue, I am proud to be a member of the Cambridge Poppy Project. CFUW members and many other women have embraced this challenge, and I am confident we will meet our goal of 10,000 poppies. Will you help us? Jayne will tell you how. And this is just some of the many we've raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam, for your very inspirational story, and I'm certainly really pleased that that you're at City Hall fighting for all of us and for a better quality of life for everyone in Cambridge and the region and Canada. Really, these great ideas. Jayne Herring will now tell us her story.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today speaking to you on International Women's Day about this year's theme of Choose to Challenge and our Cambridge Poppy Project. I have attended this event every year, and this year is certainly a bit different for all of us. So I've been asked to speak about myself today, which is a little different for me. I am a 45-year resident of Galt, Cambridge. My husband, David, is a retired secondary teacher, and we have one adult son, John, and a daughter-in-law, Wendy. I began working at the Waterloo County Board of Education in 1986 as a secretary to the superintendent of schools, and I loved my 10 years in that position. Unfortunately, due to corporate downsizing at the time, which was in 1996, I was reassigned to Glenview Park as the office supervisor. That meant I was going from a corporate environment to a school, which were vastly different worlds. I remember feeling that this transition would be one of the biggest challenges I would ever face in my working life and being very unsure that I was up to the task. I knew nothing about working in a school, and I was expected to lead a staff of 8 secretaries and provide support to the administration and teaching staff. The first year was difficult, but I was able to rise to the challenge, and I successfully held that position for 14 of the best years of my life. And my husband eventually joined the staff, and it was a wonderful experience for us both. And Glenview holds a very dear place in both of our lives. Around my 14th year in that job, though, I began to feel like I needed a new challenge, but I loved my job and the people I worked with, and I was very reluctant to leave them behind. So I looked for other ways to challenge myself. I took up motorcycling in my early 40s and eventually went on to be a motorcycle instructor for Conestoga College. To say this was outside of my comfort zone would have been putting it mildly, but I had the privilege of teaching many women and men to ride motorcycles during that time. I was also one of the first group of victim services volunteers with Waterloo Regional Police. This volunteer position was an incredible learning experience for me, and one that I hold dearly. I do feel like challenges sometimes seem to find me, though, and someone mentioned that there was a temporary job opening as the manager of corporate services back at the Education Center with the board. It was a 3-month placement to cover for a staff member who was having surgery. An interesting opportunity, I thought, but I wasn't qualified for the job. I did, however, have a desire to try something new, so I thought, what the heck, and I applied. Luckily for me, Linda Faby, who is now a very dear friend, was the director of education at the time. And after interviewing me, she decided to give me a chance. I accepted the challenge and dove into learning about parliamentary procedure and Robert's rules and working with the Board of Trustees. Tragically, though, the staff member I was filling in for passed away on my very first day in this position. It was a very difficult time for everyone. And after much soul searching, I applied and accepted the permanent position and remained there until my retirement in 2017. Nearing retirement, I began to feel like I had something more to contribute and made the decision to run for a school board trustee. I retired in 2017 and ran in the municipal election in 2018. I was elected as a trustee, and soon after, trustees elected me to serve as chairperson of the board, which I did for 2 terms, just ending this past December. I'm still serving as a trustee for Cambridge and North Dumfries, and my term ends in 2022. I am very proud to say that I am the first WRDSB support staff member to be elected as a trustee and then also to serve as chairperson of the board. For someone who preferred being in a support role, though, becoming the chairperson and spokesperson for one of the largest school boards in Ontario was definitely a challenge. During my term, our board faced some huge challenges. First, we had an unprecedented teacher strike involving all of our unions, which resulted in us having to close our schools for the first time ever. That was not an easy decision. And the second challenge was the COVID-19 pandemic. I am now hoping that managing these events while serving as chairperson will be my biggest challenge, as those 2 years were very difficult at times. Little did we know that we would still be fighting this pandemic a year later, and there have been many challenges along the way, including the worldwide lockdown and having to learn to chair board meetings electronically from my kitchen, not to mention the sudden pivot in those early days to online learning for everyone. During this time, I was very proud that our Board of Trustees became only the 2nd school board in Ontario to mandate masks for our students in kindergarten to grade 3. As the ministry only required masks in grades 4 to 12, we felt that we needed to act quickly to provide our younger students with as much protection as possible. It was absolutely the right decision, but as spokesperson for the board at the time of this decision, there was much criticism and a barrage of sometimes hateful emails, and one that I hope never to experience again. When the Minister of Education directed us to reopen schools, even though we knew that it was in our students' best interest to be in school, it was a time of great anxiety. We worried about how to keep our students and staff safe from COVID, and we didn't even know if that at the time that this was even possible. I could talk for hours about the ongoing impact that COVID may have on the mental health of our staff and students and the possible impact to student learning. I do believe that our education system will require increased and sustained funding over the next few years to address our new post-COVID reality. Speaking of challenges, I would like to point out that in order to challenge ourselves, it doesn't mean that we all have to be CEOs of major corporations. Challenging ourselves means moving outside of our comfort zone, trying something different or new. It could be that you try a new hobby or try public speaking or volunteer to be on your school council at your child's school. But we constantly need to seek out change and challenge ourselves. It's one way that we can continue to grow and evolve. Public service and community involvement is another way that I have chosen to challenge myself. I'm a very passionate supporter of my community, and I seek out ways to contribute. Another reason why I ran to be a school board trustee. In the past, I've served, as chair of the Cambridge Archives Board and chair of the Patient and Family Advisory Council at Cambridge Memorial Hospital. I am currently the Vice President of Citizens for Cambridge, which is a local advocacy group. All three of your speakers today have a strong connection to community and a history of community service and involvement, which leads me to the Cambridge Poppy Project. For those of you who've not heard of the Niagara Poppy Project, I encourage you to go to our website at www.cambridgepoppyproject.ca, as we have pictures of their project so you can get an idea of what thousands of poppies will look like. I was so moved when I visited there to see the site of these poppies and the tribute to our veterans that I thought, we need to do this in Cambridge. On the ride home, I wondered how I could work to bring this to our community, and the next day, my first call was to Pam. I wanted her advice about whether she even thought it was possible to bring this to our community. Pam loved the project, and as she also serves on the board of the Idea Exchange, she was in a position to make that connection for us. Pam and I both thought if we were going to do something involved knitting in Cambridge, then the next person that we had to bring on board was Sue Sturdy. And thankfully, Sue loved the project and jumped in with both feet. As project coordinator, I'm proud to say that we have an amazing team behind this project, and I hope that you will visit our website to learn more and meet the rest of our team. So, as you've heard, our goal is 10,000 poppies. It's a big goal, and that's why we need all of your help to help knit and crochet poppies. Our plan is to have a display of poppies that will be installed on the outside and inside of the Queen Square building and the outside of both the Preston and Hespeler Idea Exchange locations. We won't be sharing our design until just prior to November, but I can tell you that it will be a spectacular tribute to honor our veterans and to celebrate the fact that our entire community came together, albeit separately, to work on a joint project of remembrance during times of COVID. I would like to point out that even though this is called the Cambridge Poppy Project, it's called that because this is where the project is located. We would like to invite everyone in Waterloo Region, the province of Ontario and beyond to participate in knitting and crocheting poppies. Just this week, we received 200 poppies from a woman in Moncton, New Brunswick. We've partnered with the City of Cambridge and the Idea Exchange and also Cambridge Fibers, who've recently put together a kit for $7 that includes 3 balls of red and 1 ball of black yarn, and this will allow you to make a tremendous number of poppies. One of our goals was to make this project as accessible and open to as many people as possible. Staff at the Idea Exchange are currently in the process of making up free kits, and each kit will make up 2 poppies. You'll need to provide your own crochet hook or knitting needles if possible, as we only have a very limited number of crochet hooks for distribution. The pattern is on our website and will also be included in each kit. Please watch our social media and also the social media of the Idea Exchange for an update on when our kits will be available to pick up. We are pleased that we will be supplying kits to the Grand Valley Women's Institute on Monday so that they can also participate in our project. We also have 2 retired teachers on our team, and they are reaching out to schools and families with free kits so that our students can participate as well. The poppy is trademarked, and we have received written permission from the Royal Canadian Legion in Ottawa to use it in our project. But this means that we must follow poppy protocol, and we can only display the traditional red and black poppy. Our display will start on the last Friday in October, which is the 29th, and will come down on the morning of November 12th. If you would like to contribute poppies in other mediums, such as fiber art or stained glass or quilting, please reach out through our website or our social media pages to Sue Sturdy, who will also be curating a complimentary display of these items throughout the city. We've been asked what we'll do with the poppies once our display is over, and we are just still discussing the options. Our main focus right now is getting the project up and running and ensuring that we meet our goal of 10,000 poppies. One suggestion is to display the project for 2 years, but that will require a large area for storage. So if you can help us by providing storage, please reach out to us. We may also offer the poppies to our local Legion branches, but these discussions have not yet taken place due to COVID restrictions. We can, however, assure you that all of the poppies will be cherished and reused in some fashion. We are always in need of additional supplies for our project, so if you would like to make a donation, please contact us through our website or our social media. Thank you today for your support, and we look forward to sharing our project with you all in November.
Thank you, Jayne. A very, very interesting life story and challenge to us all, and your inspiration for the Poppy Project. I'm very excited to support it. I am knitting away here, but I have many more to do. So thank you. It's a real inspiration. CFUW Cambridge was founded in 1954 as the University Women's Club of Galt, Collectively, our past and current members are graduates of all Ontario universities, several community colleges, and other Canadian universities and universities worldwide. Our members have leveraged their education and training towards successful careers as librarians, teachers, nurses, accountants, social workers, bankers, engineers, doctors, dentists, veterinarians, and healthcare executives, to name a few. Annually, CFUW Cambridge provides scholarships to local women for continuing education. In the past 5 years, the club has awarded approximately $30,000 in scholarships. Two $2,000 scholarships each are given to local women entering their second year of university. This year's winners are Emily Leahy and Isabel Raganey, and both are graduates of Galt Collegiate Institute. Emily is studying at the University of Ottawa to obtain a joint Bachelor's of Social Science and Political Science and Public Administration within the French immersion stream. She participated in the House of Commons PAGE program for first-year students. She volunteers at the University of Ottawa as Director of Philanthropy and Director Sponsorship and Guest Speakers. She volunteered in Cambridge with Catherine McGarry's campaign office, the Canadian Cancer Society, and the Relay for Life. Isabel Raganey is studying integrated biomedical engineering and health sciences at McMaster University. She plans to work in the biomedical field after graduation to create and refine medical robots for surgical and medical application. Her high school activities include the Royal Canadian Air Cadets and Royal Conservatory of Music. Her university activities include volunteering as a student ambassador and writing for the McMaster Engineering Society newsletter, as well as participating with the Hamilton chapter of Medical Makers to design and create a robot. Emily and Isabel are both inspiring young academic leaders who are well deserving of our scholarships. Annually, scholarships of $1,000 each are awarded to two mature female college students. The students are at least 25 years of age, have a Cambridge connection, and return to academic pursuits after 2 years or more. There was only one winner this year, Daniel Mayo. She is currently studying the business marketing program full-time and looking forward to a business career. She has many years' experience as a personal support worker and in customer service, and she wanted new educational and professional challenges. She told us that this award gave her a feeling of recognition and determination to keep pursuing her dreams and goals. She believes that completing her program will assist her in becoming a better role model for her 5-year-old daughter. All 3 of our scholarship winners this year are an inspiration to our members and supporters. COVID-19 has made this a very challenging year for young students to have part-time jobs to help support their educational dreams. Thank you for your continued support of our scholarship program. With your support, we can continue to provide scholarships to deserving students in our community. All donations received will be directed towards the scholarship fund. Donations can be made through the scholarship tab on our website. Charitable income tax receipts will be sent for all donations. And we have door prizes again. They will be drawn on March 22nd from the names of those that made a donation to the scholarship fund. The winners will be notified by email. Thank you to our partners and sponsors, the City of Cambridge, Scotiabank, Farm Boy, Tom Kimple and Shelley Schmidt of Integrated Financial Planning Services, and the Galt Country Club. Thank you to all the CFUW members that have participated in this event. Thank you for the work you do for women and for your communities. Your volunteer commitment and successes demonstrates the CFUW value of the power of women working together. Thank you to the International Women's Day Event Committee, Susan Garlick, Barb Lee, Fiona Wood, Anne Grew, Diane Wilkinson, Janet Huber, Donna Reid, Nancy Dixon, and Kathleen Schrum, our committee chair. But most importantly, thank you to all of you for joining us this morning to celebrate the important tradition of International Women's Day and for your consideration of our request for a donation to the Scholarship Fund. CFUW has always stood for education, fairness, advocacy, and support. It has offered members friendship, laughter, and as Dr. Marie Curie recommended many years ago, lively conversation about ideas. If you're interested in joining us, please refer to our website and contact us. Just Google CFUW Cambridge. We're always ready to welcome new members. Let us not forget that our world needs the talents of every individual. But today, here is to strong, bold, intelligent women. May we know them, may we raise them, and may we be them. Let us go forward with a sense of purpose to achieve equality and social justice for all. I look forward to seeing you next year in person at the 10th Annual International Women's Day Breakfast. I have faith in the vaccine program. I would like to close with the words of an outstanding leader in the fight against COVID-19 from Canada, Dr. Bonnie Henry. Be kind, be calm, and be safe. Thank you.